I watched the top 5 Studio Ghibli movies and will be giving each movie a mini analytical review with its own spotlight. I took notes as I watched the movie and am no stranger to rewinding anime many times. I read slow. Bear with me as by the time I get to the last couple of movies I was lying upside down hanging off my couch. Anyway, not only have I been watching anime for over 10 years now, but I'm also the kind of guy who watches old-timey movies so I can understand pop culture references. I have nearly 200 anime on my anime list, and somehow I have not seen a single film from Studio Ghibli. If this video gets 200 likes, I will watch 5 more. Comment below which ones you want me to watch next. So strap in, grab some popcorn, or clip timestamps. Let's get into this. If I needed to sum up this movie in one word, it would be symbolism. If I asked my girlfriend to do the same, she would say sadness. Well, when a movie is able to intertwine such emotional symbolism smoothly and realistically into the framework of its story, there is no doubt that the impact will be felt through the tears this movie brings. The symbolic meaning of the Fireflies in this movie are able to represent so many different macabre aspects, it really seems uncanny. I always thought of fireflies as peaceful and beautiful. Even the kids in the movie do as well. They even capture them and put them under their bug net to provide light inside their shelter. However, one of the first things that stuck out to me in this movie is how the bombs flying through the air are oddly representative of fireflies. Setsuko even mentions in the movie that the bombs look like fireflies. On top of that, many people even believe that the fireflies on the movie poster are actually shards and sparks from the bombs of a B-29. This close comparison of the beautiful and peaceful fireflies against the horror and trauma of bombs bursting through the air is so jarring it almost hurts. This peace and horror juxtaposition appears to be a common theme throughout the movie as well. Seda tries his best to provide peace of mind to Setsuko as they enjoy their temporary times of peace together as much as they can. From the beginning of the movie to the end, they are shown playing with each other and trying their best not to think about the terror that is all around them. This adds to the emotional impact that the movie provides because these temporary times of peace are constantly being stripped away one after another. Their peace isn't able to last long. This brings us to the next aspect that the fireflies represent, the human soul. Fireflies usually live about 2 to 3 weeks and for this reason are seen as a symbol of impermanence. These fireflies represent Setsuko and Seda as they die at a young age. Additionally, we can say they represent all of the humans that die too young due to the bombings taking place. This becomes directly connected as Setsuko asks why the fireflies and her mother had to die while burying the fireflies in a pile that is exactly how the bodies after the bombings were piled and buried together. With realistic visuals, audio, and mannerisms of the characters, this movie is able to create the essence of immersion. The all too realistic portrayals draw that inescapable emotional connection that provides meanings behind every image. It does not matter that the beginning of the movie showed us the inevitable ending when we become so attached to the characters and the impermanent peaceful times they had. The movie was always going to end the way it did, and we knew that all those peaceful times were not going to last. But does the forewarning ever really prevent the heartache of tragedy? Your Neighbor Totoro is very reminiscent of early animated Disney movies and anime. This is no surprise as the movie came out in 1988. The animation style really did feel like early Dragon Ball, which was released in 1986. All this to say that while watching this movie several decades later, I am still impressed with everything from the animation and the sound effects to the story and the comedy. I was surprised how little Totoro was actually in the movie, and the movie flew by so fast that when I think back on it, I don't even know if there was a plot. It was just a feel-good family children imagination adventure of moving into a new home. I enjoyed every moment of it and don't want to ruin it by going any deeper into it. Growing up watching those very same movies and shows that this animated movie reminds me of gives me that nostalgic feel. I felt like I did watching Mary Poppins, The Magic School Bus, Peter Pan, and even a little bit of Phineas and Ferb. I could go into every aspect and scene that caused me to feel nostalgic for a certain other piece of media, but to sum it up nicely, in the words of former Disney chairman Joe Roth, Miyazaki's films feature the same kind of quality family entertainment that Disney strives to produce. Miyazaki is the co-founder of Studio Ghibli and director, animator, producer, and author for many of the movies such as My Neighbor Totoro. Now you might be asking yourself, what kind of magical seeds this Joe Roth has been taking to think that Miyazaki's films are that quality family entertainment after I just finished talking about The Group of Fireflies, which was released that very same year as Your Neighbor Totoro. Despite all of that, it is no doubt that these movies are extremely influential everywhere across the globe. Former Disney and Pixar creative head John Lasseter even said, "Whenever we get stuck at Pixar or Disney, I put on a Miyazaki film sequence or two just to get us inspired again." Ultimately, Disney did obtain the distribution rights for some of the Studio Ghibli movies overseas from 1996 to 2017. During this time, it is no surprise that Miyazaki makes another serious film that Disney intends to cut and edit to cater towards a more Western audience. However, Studio Ghibli producer Toshio Suzuki sends Disney a samurai sword with a note that simply says, "No cuts." And what that gave us is the next movie that I watched. Good and evil isn't always black and white. Most times they contrast, but often it's a matter of perspective. This movie tackles the clash between human civilization and nature. This clash is portrayed through the coloration and animation with distinct contrast between the sides of good and evil. However, the justification that both sides have for what they are doing are powerful powerful and understandable. Logically speaking, this blurs that contrast between good and evil, all while it is still clear in the animation. Neither side is a clear villain, and it becomes difficult to choose who to root for. We want Lady Eboshi to continue to be able to support her people and provide a safe and earnest life for them. However, we also do not want the forest and the animals to lose their homes and die. The color contrast makes it clear the different nature between the two sides with the black outlines in the animation of the characters. Lady Eboshi receiving primarily red and black colors in direct contrast to the forest, the princess and the wolves receiving bright green and white colors. While colors have several symbolic meanings, red can often symbolize danger and war, while green symbolizes life and resurrection. It becomes clear that the humans are what is causing the harm and creating the evil. One of the reasons this movie creates that understandable difficulty between good and evil is due to how well it portrays the human civilization. The movie is honestly aging like fine wine, unfortunately, as these topics are becoming more and more real with the increase in global warming and the difficulty there is to try to save the planet. On top of that, Ashitaka being harmed by the human-created evil demonstrates that the humans' actions harm more than just the forest or the planet, but also themselves. This ties back to the rampaging boar god turned demon Ashitaka encountered that inflicts him with an evil curse. Least to not mention the fighting between the human groups either. Neither the humans or the nature and forest are one group. There are many individual groups living both in the human society and within the forest, all with their own motivations. We view some of the humans as great characters, and the forest understands and acknowledges this. It is not as easy as saying that humans are evil or nature is good. The reason Lady Eboshi wants the forest spirit's head is to give it to Lord Asano in return for protection of her town and people. The monkeys and hogs are both acting in their own best interest based on their own pride and way of living. Ashitaka is able to see the good in both sides and serves as strong protagonist that works to bridge the gap between them. Working together created the best ending, and similar to real life, the ending did not seem as conclusionary as we would like it. Lord Asano still wants the forest spirit's head, and if anything, the only change to come out of the ending is between the forest and Irontown. A relationship is developed between them, and they learn to work together moving forward, but not without a threat that the humans as a whole continue to pose. It is thanks to the contrasting animation and details within the characters that give a sense of visual emphasis of the contrast between these problems and groups that are logically less clear than they seem. We are able to immerse ourselves into a story that hits home a little too hard. There are many things we can learn and take away from this movie, but I think we can all agree red is sus. Watch out! New anime crush incoming, and it's not Sophie. Howl's Moving Castle is an incredible love story that explores a plethora of meaningful themes that would easily warrant a rewatch or two. As much as I enjoyed this movie, the heavily detailed, fast-paced nature also means I had a lot of questions left unanswered. None of these questions impaired the overall meaning and viewing experience, but instead had me diving deeper into the various meanings of this film. The main concept that I took from my watch of this movie is Sophie's sense of self and belonging. I knew there was going to be an old lady in this movie from the cover posters, but I'll be damned if I didn't express my feelings when we witnessed Sophie turn into one. This actually immediately gives deep insight into Sophie's character as well as human personality overall. When I say I felt strong feelings of despair and helplessness, I would also expect Sophie to share these feelings. However, the reaction that Sophie has to her new self is oddly accepting. The accepting and helpless nature seems to be how Sophie was beforehand. Sophie turning into an old lady is a metaphor for how she feels on the inside. Sophie is clearly more mentally mature than others her age. However, I also believe this opens up the idea that human age creates a veil around us that invites a certain perspective. While Sophie's body has aged, her mental state and wisdom should have stayed the same. Therefore, every action and thought that Sophie has should be that of a young lady. However, when viewed from the outside, she appears to truly act like an elderly lady. This really puts into perspective how we view elderly people in general, as even though they may act as if they are old, we don't know how they are mentally. It is interesting to see how Howl, Calcifer, and other magic users are able to see Sophie as young and are aware of the curse on her. They see her for what she is on the inside and not the outside. Classic fairy tale moral, oldest time. Furthermore, Sophie's growth through the movie is visualized in her appearance of her character. In the beginning of the movie, she is turned into an old lady. This represents her mental age, as well as how she viewed herself to be ugly with little confidence. Her loss of self and belonging bring her to wander away from her friends and family to fields that share in the emptiness where she stumbles upon Howl's Moving Castle. Here she meets others that are equally lost and hopeless. As the movie progresses and Sophie begins to find confidence, love, and happiness, she slowly begins to transition back into her younger self. With her physical appearance representing how Sophie views herself, the audience is able to visualize her growth through her younger and more energetic appearance. Even in comparison to her younger self before the curse, she seems more lively at the end. Additionally, her hair color remaining gray represents that wisdom that she gained from her experience throughout the movie. This physical representation of characters' growth can be seen in other main characters as well, such as Howl and the Witch of the Waste. When it comes to appearances, I think it is fair to say that Howl is most subconscious. He literally has a breakdown when his hair color changes. Okay, but couldn't he just change it back with magic though? Needless to say, the appearance of Howl also coincides with his feelings and attitude. This may be a little more obvious than the others, as we do watch him literally melt down during his meltdown. His character's attitude towards his appearance is in contrast to that of Sophie. While Sophie is able to accept her appearance and the fact that she is not beautiful, Howl cannot and needs to use magic and potions to keep his appearance in the exact way he approves. Hal's transition into a black bird is intimidating, beautiful, and mysterious, fitting the description of Hal himself. When Hal goes to a darker place in his life and feels lost and hopeless, this black bird becomes more frightening and sickly. However, when Hal feels confident and courageous, like when he's rushing in to save Sophie, this black bird appears more proud and healthy, unlike the health of the Witch of the Waste, who has been concealing her true age and physical appearance, all while she continues to lie to herself about her obsession and relationship with Hal. This obsession for Hal and her jealousy of Sophie will prompt her to put the curse on Sophie. The Witch of the Waste uses her magic to fulfill her greed until she is stripped of it from Madame Solomon's trap. While her magic is the physical reason for her appearance change, it is followed by growth in her as a character. Without her magic, she begins to slowly get over both her obsession with Hal and her jealousy of Sophie. Additionally, while it does take longer, she does eventually become less greedful with all of her growth leading up to the moment of her giving Hal's heart back. Furthermore, her appearance degrades throughout the rest of the film as she finally begins to accept her flaws and who she really is. Her character will have a lot of similarities with the theme of the next movie. Altogether, losing sight of who you truly are and understanding the importance of being true to yourself is a fitting theme throughout this movie and is visually represented by the character's physical appearance. Finally, we come to the last Studio Ghibli movie I watched, Spirited Away. I won't lie, I had some high expectations for this movie. I mean, how could I not? It was the most popular and highest rated Studio Ghibli film according to my anime list. Even outside the anime community, Spirited Away has cemented itself among some of the greatest movies, ranked 31st in the top movies of all time according to IMDb, receiving 58 awards including Best Animated Feature at the Oscars in 2003, as well as another 31 nominations. With a simple plot that draws a superficial appeal across a wide audience, the classic mythic structure formula along with the Campbellian archetypes create a fantastical world of spirits, dragons, and witches, entertaining the masses all while providing complex themes well interwoven into the story to provoke thought and analysis. After watching this movie, I couldn't help but feel like I was not able to pick up on all of the messages, morals, and themes that this movie holds. It left me thinking about what I had just watched and what it all meant. Now I know there would be more than enough videos, articles, and deep dives into this movie that I could go look up, but I decided to sleep on the thought and see what came to me. There were two major points that kept coming to me throughout the film and lingered while I was trying to sleep. These two major themes were selflessness and identity. However, I think it could be summed up even better in the dichotomy of selfless and selfish, the dangers of greed and the rewards of generosity. Immediately, we witness Chihiro's parents succumb to this greed and indulge their appetite when they choose to eat the food found in an abandoned village. This leads to their transformation into pigs, a literal representation of gluttony, which is a greed for food. With the transformation into pigs, the parents also lose their memories of being human, their sense of self, their identity that even Chihiro struggles to find in them. Throughout the rest of the film, we see characters given to their greed, such as Haku and all of the workers of the bathhouse. No-Face seem to serve as temptation toward desire, and almost all of the workers of the bathhouse give up their sleep, food, and services to beg and then hope for gold to be thrown their way. They give up their pride and themselves to divulge in their greed, some literally being consumed by No-Face due to their greed. Interestingly enough, it seems that No-Face becomes consumed by greed right after he consumes the frog, obtaining the personality traits of that frog as seen in the way he talks and the limbs shown to us, thus losing the identity he had before. Moreover, toads are one of the literal representations for greed. Haku gives into his greedful desire to obtain the power of Yubaba by becoming her apprentice. However, in doing so, he signs a contract with her where he loses his name, his memories, and his identity, just as with everyone else who signs the contracts with Yubaba. When Chihiro signs this contract, she loses her name and becomes Sen. She then begins to slowly lose her memories until Haku helps remind her. Haku does show selfless acts to Chihiro, and then finds himself saved by her when she remembers a past encounter with him and his name. Chihiro not only reciprocates the generosity shown to her by Haku, but can be seen throughout the film putting others before herself. Just as Haku becomes freed when he chooses selflessness, Chihiro is found to be rewarded by her selfless acts almost each time. She chooses to leave the door open for No-Face and is immediately rewarded with water tokens for the bath. She frees a river spirit of the junk trapped in him and also immediately gets rewarded with a magical ball that she somehow deduces is a magical medicine from taking a bite out of it even though it looked like leftover sludge. She then uses this magical ball twice to heal both Haku and No-Face despite her wanting to use it to save her parents. Additionally, Chihiro also refuses any temptations that are in front of her. She chose not to partake in the eating of the food with her parents. She refused the gold and bathwater tokens offered from No-Face, and when Zeniba offers her a safe place to stay, she decides she cannot wait and needs to go save Haku and her parents. It becomes clear through the film that selfish acts lead to trouble, while selflessness is almost always repaid in full. I feel I was only able to brush the surface of the themes and morals of this movie, and I will probably continue to think about it, and maybe it even deserves a video of its own. Please leave a comment below letting me know if you want me to go in depth in any of these movies specifically, or if you have any additional movies or anime that you want me to watch. Honestly, most of these movies could have warranted a video on its own, and I'm a huge fan of the talent that Hayao Miyazaki has. Studio Ghibli movies definitely live up to their name, and I have been living under a rock this whole time.